Good morning, everyone, or I should say good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Um, we're going to start in a minute or so just to allow other students to pop into the call. But thank you so much for being here. I'll allow yourself a couple moments to adjust yourself, prepare yourself for the presentation. Otherwise, we'll start in about a minute or so. Thank you so much for being here to kickstart our Careers in Mind 2023 symposium. You. All right, Shay. So as mentioned, thank you all for being here. I think a couple of students will still come in through the waiting room. So Shay, if you can just at any point admit the students as they come in. But thank you all again, heartfelt. Thank you for being here. This one specifically is the first session of our annual career symposium. It's our recent graduates. We understand that this is a really, really hot topic. A lot of students, a lot of you all are probably approaching that part of the stage of your life. So thank you for being here, and thank you for the panelists that we'll introduce in the short run right now. So yeah, like I mentioned, this is the recent graduates panel featuring UCSD graduates from the past 5 years discussing their experiences during their first years after graduation and any postgraduate plans. My name is Melissa Olmeda. My pronouns are she, hers, ella, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Shay is also on the call with me, one of the other undergraduate advisors. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Shay. I'm also an undergraduate advisor for the Department of Psychology, and then I use any pronouns, and I'll be in the background, answering any questions or doing all this tech support for you all. But I hope you all enjoy the rest of this panel.
Yes. Thank you, Shay. So for anyone who's joining, if they're returners to this session or any newcomers, welcome. Careers in Mind is a virtual symposium where we host psychology career-related sessions throughout the first 2 weeks of May, and we often invite UC San Diego's psych alum and community members to come and speak to you all. This year's theme specifically is constructing your career with intention. Career development is a transformative process that each person undergoes differently based on their own experiences, their own goals and values. So through this year's Careers in Mind, we encourage you all to evaluate your career plan and career choices with intention and a focus on your values and how your formed identities may inform your career path. So at this moment, we'd like to take the time to highlight our campus partners who made this collaboration, the symposium, possible. We worked with UC San Diego Alumni Association and the Career Center as well. And I also want to take the time to acknowledge the panelists today, to acknowledge all of you as students who took some time out of your very busy schedule to be here with us today. So thank you. Next up, that we do want to remind everyone that we are recording this session. So please be mindful of your screens. Feel free to stay off screen if you feel more comfortable. If you're on screen, just acknowledge that this is recorded. So just be mindful of that. Otherwise, please remain muted until the end of the session. We will allow for you all to have a Q&A session, but we ask that you remain muted to avoid any accidental background noise disruptions. Please know that you will have some time to ask questions as you feel comfortable. Next up, we do want to acknowledge and honor the native land we are on at UC San Diego, but by reciting this land acknowledgement. So the UC San Diego community holds great respect for the land and the original people of the area where our campus is located. The university was built on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. Today, the Kumeyaay people continue to maintain their political sovereignty and cultural traditions as vital members of the San Diego community. We acknowledge their tremendous contributions to our region and thank them for their stewardship. So thank you for acknowledging that with us today. And one quick reminder is if you are here today participating with us and intending to use this for your careers or your co-curricular record certification, please fill out the Careers in Mind credit sign-in sheet that we will put on the chat. Thank you, Shay. This will be used to confirm your participation in today's session. So please you need to do this in order to actually have that validation. So please take some time today. And we'll also remind you towards the end of the session, but please quickly fill that sign-in sheet. It's a pretty quick one, but again, it will validate your participation today. And if you are not using that, then no worries. Just be here engaged and an active participant. All right, oops, I will stop sharing my screen at this point and start going into our discussion. So at this point, Shay, if you can please just pin our guest speakers so that we can introduce themselves. And at this stage, I will allow, we have a total of 3 guests today who will impart on us their great wisdom regarding the recent graduate experience. So I will let them take the lead. And if you can just introduce yourselves with your name, if you have any current title, and just pronouns before we proceed with the rest of the discussion. And you can start with anyone who feels comfortable.
Hi, I can start. My name is Nicole Avaya. I have my bachelor's in cognitive and behavioral neuroscience. I am almost done with my master's degree in psychology. I'm graduating in 2 weeks. And my pronouns are he, her, hers. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicole, for joining us.
I'm Sophia. I graduated from UCSD in 2018 with a BS in psychology, and right now I'm a second-year PhD student at Temple doing clinical psychology and neuroscience. And my pronouns are she, her.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Van Noon. My pronouns are he, they, and let's see, I recently graduated in 2022, so I haven't even had a full year out of school yet. So a lot of things I'll say, I'm just learning as I go right now too, so keep that in mind. I've been working as a legal assistant just to explore the field of law, but I've been interested in education, counseling as well.
Yeah, Van, and a lot of the experiences for recent grads is, learning as new experiences come up. So whether you're going straight into a new program, whether you're taking gap year, whether you're taking an unintentional or planned pause, it is all part of the recent graduate experience. So thank you for giving that perspective. As not one experience is linear, and it'll be important to have that. So thank you all for introducing yourselves. We'll start with the next question here, which, what were your first thoughts you had when you received your diploma from UC San Diego?
I guess I could start with this one. I don't know if this is meaning like right when I graduated in June or when I physically received it in the mail a little bit later, but I think for my experience, it was a little underwhelming, to be completely honest, just because I got off, like, for me, the biggest moment was doing the last final. That was in my mind when I was done with school, and the diploma was like, it was a nice thing to have, but like having that relief of being done with the last final was like, I'm done. But then after that, when I got the diploma, I'm like, oh wait, I'm done. What now? Then a little bit of fear with that. It's just like, what's happening next? Because after all these several years of a routine of knowing what to do next, and then now you're kind of, I mean, up until this point, hopefully you do a little bit of planning, or at least a little bit of figuring out what you want to do next, but sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen next, and that's a little bit nerve-wracking.
100%. And it's okay. And Van, you really bring up a good point that a lot of students don't technically realize is the conferral of the degree takes a while. So even if you have that final exam, you're still waiting for all of that confirmation from the advisors, from the registrar's office, all that good stuff until you actually get that physical degree in your hand. But Sophia and Nicole, I'll allow you both to answer. And I know that if you haven't shared a title or a specific place in life where you're at, feel free to take that time right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so I'm 26 now. I'm like getting old, and like I remember. Oh, you too, Nicole. Yeah, I remember when I graduated, I was like, okay, cool. I luckily got a job right away after college because I actually worked for 3 years in between undergrad and my PhD, but I remember it took so long to get the degree conferred, so I actually couldn't start my job until like September or October after my degree was conferred, even though I was hired in like June or something. So just something to keep in mind. That's like a weird thing because some employers, they won't recognize your degree until you have it conferred in the diploma and stuff. So I remember that.
Yeah, I would say mine was similar, at least to Van. I got my diploma. I actually finished in this like winter quarter, so you don't get your diploma until after like spring, and it was COVID. So I was here like, wow, I have something to hang up, but like I don't know if I have anything for like I don't know how long it's gonna last. Like it was just very unknown and kind of scary. But I was like, at least I have my diploma, but I didn't really know what was gonna happen next for sure.
Yeah, and I think everyone's response, thank you for sharing, just shows the nuance of that experience of whether it's you feeling, acknowledgement or achievement upon your final exam, or not until you actually physically get that degree in hand. It's normal to have a variance of emotions, and it just sometimes, often with recent graduates specifically, it's probably overshadowed by a lot of feelings of confusion or a lot of nerve-wracking experience of what's going to happen next. Either you're excited about if you have a grad program lined up, or if you don't have a plan of sorts, then you're just thinking about what's next. So taking the time to acknowledge that there's a nuance of emotion there. So thank you for sharing. The next one that we will ask here is, how did your experience as a student at UCSD impact what you are doing now? And what you are doing now can elaborate on your career. It can elaborate on activities, the friends, the company you keep, but overall, how did that experience at UCSD impact where you're at now?
I can quickly go. I think it impacted me a lot where I went to undergrad, and I think where like UCSD as a whole, like the research environment, that's what kind of led me in this direction of like doing a PhD. And I think just having the resources that we have available, like like I was in the psych honors program and I was in a bunch of research labs, and I always just found it super interesting. And I think that really did like carve out like the next step for me, even though I had a lot of like doubts along the way of like, do I want to move? Do I want to go to grad school? Like, do I want to be in school for 5 years of my life? Like, do I want to move cross country and like leave my friends behind? But in general, I think, the psych department and the honors program really like kind of like geared me up towards that next step. And I felt very prepared for a PhD after school at UCSD. So that makes anyone feel better if they're like thinking about doing a PhD, or you're like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like I felt so prepared because I think like UCSD is so rigorous and like our classes are rigorous and it's so fast with the quarter system. I felt like super prepared. So, it's a good boost from that, I think.
A lot of our students need to hear that, so thank you.
I would say my experience is the same as well. I definitely came into UCSD thinking I want to do one thing, and I came out knowing I was like, okay, I'm going to do research and I'm going to go to grad school. And I think it was because like it was so rigorous and they really emphasized research there. And I guess that's what I ended up doing. And even in other things, like I'm still really close to like all my friends that I made at UCSD. It impacted me a lot for sure. And yeah, I think it really prepared me really well for even more school, actually. Yeah.
And for me, kind of similar, but also opposite. Where I do think my experience in UCSD did shape career pathway now, but I'm thinking maybe I'd want to do research. Came out being wanting to go the complete opposite way. Not that research bad, it's just super not my personality. I think the main formative experience for me was working as I also worked in the psych department as a peer advisor, and that helped me kind of figure out what I like to do. And it helped me think about I like education, but also I encourage you. I also for myself kind of broke down what I like about it, and what I like about it helping people figure out how to navigate some things that are somewhat convoluted or complicated. And so that opens up doorways beyond education as well too. So like the field of law, for example, kind of have this similar has kind of similar aspects to that. So there might be something that you really like to do, but I just would suggest looking kind of deeply what aspect you like about it and see if there's something like that in other fields as well, because you might enjoy that too. So don't limit yourself to one field that you've always known your whole life, because there's lots of things in the world out there you could learn.
Yeah, thank you for providing that too. And you all spoke on the experience of UCSD. Again, it's a huge research institution. So a lot of students naturally feel supported, feel confident in approaching research postgraduate. And for students, Van, like you mentioned, who enjoyed the research aspect, or maybe found out that they didn't enjoy the research, there are avenues that you can proceed with postgraduate, post UCSD, that aren't necessarily tied to research. Like you mentioned, you could do education, you could do law. So just acknowledging that right now you're at a good time to sit with what your experiences are right now at UCSD, and acknowledging what you do like, what you don't enjoy, because it will impact what you're doing later on. So thank you all for adding that. And I do want to remind students that if at any point any questions pop up, feel free to send that in the chat so we can address it at the Q&A session later on. Or again, there will be a session later on for you to raise your hand or put it in the chat as well, whatever you feel comfortable. I just know sometimes as panelists are speaking, questions may pop up as well. So thank you all for sharing a little bit about that. So kind of elaborating on that postgraduate experience, what was or is something difficult that you are overcoming or that you overcame after graduating college? What do you wish you would have known?
Oh, I got a story for you guys. So when I was lucky in that when I graduated college, I had been interviewing for jobs in April. I had the job lined up, really good scenario, right? It was smooth sailing, I guess. But my mom had gotten laid off from her job. And I'm actually from out of state. I'm from the East Coast originally. And my mom lost her job. And I found out that my job, because of the degree conferral thing, wasn't going to hire me until October. So I was like, okay, I got the job, I have a job secured, but I don't know exactly when the start date is. They actually weren't even sure about if I would start in October or not, or if it'd be later. I didn't know. So I ended up having to literally just figure out how to make money over the summer. And I worked at restaurants. Temporarily, I went to the UTC mall, handing out my resume to any place that would take me so I could support myself over the summer so that I wouldn't have to move back home. And I luckily was able to do that. I got 2 jobs at restaurants, and I just hustled my butt off over the summer until the fall. And then luckily I got a call from where I eventually got hired, and they were like, oh, your start date is Monday. And I was like, cool, thanks. So I don't know. I think I would just say from that story, even if something doesn't go the way you think it's gonna go, if you're resourceful, you'll figure out how to deal with it. You can push through to deal with a situation that's really stressful, I think, and it'll give you more confidence later on, because now I know if something were to happen and I had to go out and make money, I can hopefully am resourceful enough now to figure out how to do that if something were to happen, and I had to support my mom more or something like that. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Let's see. So just the question again is just what is difficult that we had to overcome for postgrad? Something that I've seen, I don't know if this is true throughout previous years or so, but something with this year and with everyone I talk to is that finding jobs is really difficult at this point in time. And maybe that's true. That's always been true. I don't know. I only know it's been true in this past year.
Everyone's head nodded.
Okay, so is this kind of unique to this year, or has it always been a thing? Because it's a little rough to find a job. And then when you do find a job, you get excited, but you also take what you can get.
Mhm.
And then for me, I found that I don't like my job personally as a legal assistant. And I was kind of stuck in a position where I'm like, okay, I know I don't like this job and I want to leave, but also it's going to take a long time to find a new job.
Mhm.
And then I'm just like, do I take this comes with no job and a source of income, or what happens next? This is just something that I've been also talking to my other friends who are kind of in the same year as me. They also have struggled with this, where I mean, you can't always get like a perfect job to start with either. Like it's probably going to suck at the beginning. And if it doesn't suck at the beginning for you, that's really good. But yeah, the first job, just take what you can get to build up your career and just have like a step forward to get beyond the end.
100%. And it's kind of like what Sophia mentioned in the whole it's just a matter of being resourceful and having that hustle, obviously being mindful of your well-being as well. But that's a huge privilege, is sometimes the first job that lines up isn't necessarily the one, your dream job, and kind of having to acknowledge and sit with that. Nicole, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's funny, because I think after I graduated UCSD, I was like, I know I want to go to more school. So it didn't really hit me, at least as like post grad, like I'm done, until I guess now, now that I'm finishing my master's. The whole time I was like, oh, I kind of want to get my PhD, and I want to do this. And I decided to work, and I'm realizing like, oh my gosh, academia is a totally different thing than industry. Like your CV isn't useful now. You need a resume. Like you need to like curate yourself, and the job search is pretty insane right now. I think just navigating that, it's a lot, and that's very true about what you said. Like the opportunities that come might not be like your dream job, but it might be like a step in the right direction, or even just like something that you could just get a different experience of, even though it's not exactly what you want right now. Yeah, I think just like being open to that has been something I've been putting myself more like in those positions. I've been attending like career fairs or like networking events, which I would not normally never do. Those would normally freak me out really bad. But now I'm realizing like there's so much more out there that I had no idea about before. And even though it's kind of uncomfortable to be in these positions, I'm learning a lot too.
100%. Go ahead, Van.
Sorry, I just want to add on to what Nicole's saying, like just entering academia and realizing it's different. I just forgot to add that, yeah, there are some things you might want to explore. And then once you actually get into it, you realize there's a lot of aspects that you don't see unless you're actually in it. And there's no way to know about them unless you do it, which in a way is like, you can, it's empowering in a way because you want to try different things, but also it can be discouraging because you physically cannot try every single thing that exists. So sometimes you just risk and hope that it's gonna, like, all the unseen aspects are gonna be enjoyable, and it might work out and it might not, but that's the normal experience for it to not, at least, well, from my experience and also from talking to other people who've done the same thing.
Yeah, agreed, Van. I think there's a shared experience of having to be a little bit uncomfortable with the journey. And I think ultimately, as you all have shared, I think it will. And maybe for some of you has paid off, but it is a feeling of potential, tumultuous feelings of confusion, of having to explore. If that makes you uncomfortable, then taking some time to acknowledge how you feel and taking some steps to remedy that, because I think that's the only way that will help you continue on with the progress or with the journey as well. And an extension of that, to provide some sort of support with that process, with those feelings that you all mentioned. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. Do you all have any resources or any sources of support that helped you post-grad, that helped you process those feelings, or are continuing to help you as you're processing that right now?
I can.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. Okay,
I was gonna say that, like, with my undergrad at UCSD, I was in a lab, and I didn't think about at the time when you're an undergrad, like how important like the people you meet are and like those connections. But now that it's, I guess, been 3 years since I finished there, I'm like still in touch with my mentor at the time. Like she's still like checks on me. She asks me like to see my CV once in a while. And like, I guess it was just something that like I didn't realize was a network I was starting. Because when you're an undergrad, you're just like, I'm just in a lab. But like she has helped me out so much. And even though we're not like doing the same things anymore, I'm not going to academia, she is still like a resource, someone willing to look at like resumes, and even like old professors, honestly, like a lot of times you might not get a response, but sometimes someone will like really want to like help you. And I think it really just takes like you kind of reaching out and putting yourself out there to like maintain those connections. And yeah, I think that's really helped me a lot, even way post grad.
Let's see. I would also say just the academic connections you make, which are really important. Like the professor, like for me, one of my professors gave me a lot of advice that I took that I really found helpful. The one thing she told me was to take a gap year between undergrad and college, just because, or undergrad and grad school, because what I initially wanted to do was go to a master's degree to do academic advising, but I had a little bit of doubt, not because I didn't like the field, but because there were other pathways that I was also curious about. And she's like, don't like, I mean, you can always change your pathway later in life. Even if you do get a master's, you could totally change your pathway. But before I invest like $20,000 into a program and find out that I might want to do something else, maybe try doing an entry-level job in different fields first to see if you might like those. And I really don't regret that. Even if I found out I don't like law, at least now I can proceed forward knowing that I'm not missing out by choosing a different pathway. Other resources I found really helpful were just having peers of the same age. Like right now you're in college and you have a lot of people who are the same age. Once you get out of college, for me, I'm introverted. It's really difficult to like manage a job and then also try and meet new people at the same time. But the connections I made in college, like I have people who I can talk to who are kind of in the same spot as me and maybe going, or not maybe, they are going through the same struggles that I am. And I realize that I'm not uniquely struggling in this aspect. Like I'm not failing at my job. I'm not failing at exploring a career. It's like, this is just something that people go through.
Yeah, I think that validation is so important to hear. Surrounding yourself with mentors, surrounding yourself with folks who identify like you, who are in the same stage as you, so that you can keep that motivation up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about exploring different options too. I forget who was mentioning that just now, but for me, like after I did the honors program and I got a research job. So it was like, okay, like I'm on the research path, but there was like many times like where I was like, like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I actually started an HR certificate program and I was like, maybe I want to do data analytics and not, go to grad school. And I actually was doing that, like while I was at my research job, I like did this HR class at night just to see if I would like it and like wanted to switch to that. I ended up not liking it and I stuck with what I was doing, and I kind of just like fell deeper into like the research I was doing, and then it turned into like, I think I want to go to grad school. But it was definitely not like, I definitely was not sure about it. Like, even though I literally was in this job, I was like, I'm still not sure about this. And I think that should be more normalized. I don't think we're machines that, go around, some people are maybe, but I mean, I think most people have some doubts, especially about doing a PhD and dedicating your life to this, Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. And Sophia, to echo, we really do need to normalize that exploration of not necessarily having something that's 100% the thing that you'll stick for the rest of your life. That is so important to take the time to explore. And what Nicole and Van added too is just, it's a lot of emotional, financial investment if you're going to go straight into a grad program, whether it's PhD, whether it's master's. Whether it's a really, serious entry-level position, it's a lot of your well-being at stake there. So you definitely want to take the time to listen to yourself, whether you feel comfortable, explore options so that you don't feel tied down or miserable in a position. And I think that's really important too. And to normalize feelings of not necessarily knowing what to take or feeling overwhelmed as well, as you all have mentioned. So thank you for sharing a little bit of that as well.
I kind of want to add on to that too, like,
Go ahead.
and it never has to stop. Even though like I'm in grad school now, at some point I was like, maybe I don't want a PhD. Like I ended up joining another lab, and I was like, oh, I heard about like UX research and design, I was like, maybe I like it. And I tried it out. I don't think I like it that much, but you know what I mean? Like, it's fine. And like, it never has to stop like exploring new options. And if you don't like it, like, don't feel bad that like you put any time into it, because I learned something new. I was like, I wanted to try something. I learned that it's not for me, and that's totally okay. So yeah, no, don't feel like you're in a box or anything. Like, your whole life is ahead of you to keep trying new things.
I love that. And I think specific to you at UCSD, I'm sure you all are so aware of it, how, academically rigorous, how competitive it can feel, how it's so easy to get into that comparison game, and acknowledging that, you're on your own path, you're on your own timeline. It's comforting, and it can also be overwhelming to compare your journey to others, but really be mindful of how you're on your own pace and how it's so important to remind yourself of that when you're talking to others and, venting to others as well. So thank you all for sharing that. The next question here is, amidst all of those feelings, the nuanced feelings of being a postgraduate individual, what experiences or goals or values motivated and continue to motivate your postgraduate exploration? Or even learning, as Nicole mentioned.
This one's a hard one. I had an answer to it before the panel started, and now I'm like questioning it again. But for me, like the most surface level goal is I just want to get further into my career and just, and hopefully be to a place where I can be stable and peaceful with the job that I have and have a routine, and where I don't have to constantly be thinking about what's next. So maybe that's a little bit far to think about. I guess my more immediate goals are just to, like, I have a checklist of different fields I wanted to explore. I'm checking them off. I worked a little bit in education. I'm trying law now. Probably gonna check that one off because again, not my personality. Next will probably be the counseling or therapy direction, hopefully. So those are my immediate goals. This is breaking again what I was saying before. I broke down what I liked about my previous experience. I like helping people figure things out. So I'm just looking for careers where I could do that and also be able to eat food. So
Have basic needs met, yes.
yeah.
Van, I do want to validate. I think whether short-term, long-term goals, this question's so important to include because I think it encompasses, what is just motivating you? What motivates you to continue through this exploration? Because as you all have mentioned, it can be a time full of a lot of confusion, a lot of, doubt. So what keeps you motivated? And like you said, it's all valid, the long-term idea of, being in a career that you love, or the short-term idea of, or it's also intertwined with long-term, but having basic needs met. Like sometimes things are going to overpower the other, and what's keeping you motivated for that? Nicole, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is something that I think I've come to realize now is that like I'm after a career where I actually can use like my skills that I have already, instead of like trying to fit myself into other things or maybe like something that might like, of course, the financial aspect is so important, but like I want to be able to like contribute like as much as I can at the same time. And I think that really motivates me to look for something that aligns with my interests, my skills, and of course my financial needs. And another thing that like is not even career related, but something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is like um, your career is very important for sure, but it doesn't have to be like everything. Like you can continue learning like outside of so many other things you want to pick up, and like I feel like picking a career that's right for you that aligns with you will allow you to like also explore all these other things. There's so many like paths out there. Like when I was considering doing a PhD, I was like, I do love this, but it's going to become my whole life, and I would probably need to sacrifice like everything that I love, move to a different place to chase my career. And I think that was where I was like, is this worth it for me when there's so many things out there that I'm still interested in that I'm not ready to like give up? So yeah, I think that's like continuously motivating me to look for something that aligns with my interests, my skills, but also like what I want in life and like my personal life too. So
Yeah, and I think you two have touched up, and Nicole, what you just talked about really reminds me of what comes out of exploration, taking the time to explore, is also, I think you become a better agent of defending yourself, of advocating for yourself. So after a while, not only like Van, have you mentioned, you get to become familiar with what you actually enjoy. Like Nicole, you get familiar with what your skills and strengths are, so that eventually it starts becoming a journey of also acknowledging that, you're interviewing for a position, but also the position is interviewing you. Like it needs to be a good fit for you, and it needs to fit with your personal values, your goals, whatever it's long-term or short-term. It's really important for you to be reminded of that. It's just as important for you to advocate for yourself. And I think that exploration, the more you take the time to do that, the more you get to know yourself as a candidate and as a human just trying to make it out in this world. So thank you both for sharing a bit of that. And
I'd like to
go ahead, Van.
Nicole said, no, Nicole said something that I would like to add on. She said that your career isn't all of you, and it's not everything. And I think it's easy to forget that too, because a lot of the emphasis we have is like, what is your career, or what career are you working towards? But there's also like another 40% of your life that just isn't your career at all. It's your hobbies and your personality, everything like that. And you need to make sure to nourish that aspect of you too, just to keep that separate from your work as well. Like something, or another thing for me when looking at a job personally is like, I really want to have that work-life balance, or like the separation really. Because I mean, some jobs, like if you take the problems in your job home, then it kind of, might infect like the other 40% of your life that you like to keep to yourself, that makes yourself happy, like your hobbies and all that. So, well, I mean, there's a little bit of a tangent, but mainly I just think just also remember you have a very large portion of yourself that's not connected to your job, and that you can just figure out what your personality is there as well, and what you want, what you value outside of career.
100%. Agreed and related tangent, Van. So thank you. We move on to our last and final question. If you had to describe your postgraduate experience in one word, what would it be and why?
I don't know, I guess this might be cliche or something, but I feel uncertain would probably be that, because leaving college, I was thinking, oh, okay, I'm probably going to end up going to masters for academic advising and such. And then, but I'm like, okay, I'll try this other field or these other fields first. And then I'm just like kind of pulled in different directions now and not sure which way I want to go. And I don't regret doing that, because now at least I can rule out some possibilities, but now I have several more possibilities for me to go added onto my list. And it's just going to need some further exploration too. So I could either go to master's right away, or I could spend a few years to be about my decisions. And that's, I don't know which direction's right, because it's a cost of time in exchange for certainty. So you could take the risk and maybe it will work out, or you could do what I'm doing and hopefully doing something that'd be more certain. I really don't know which way's the right way to go. If you're certain about which pathway you want to go in, I would say just, but you're probably going to be, the further you go, you're probably going to be more uncertain about what you do.
Yeah, and that's a reality of some of the experience too.
Mhm. One word is kind of hard. I'm in between, like, I guess there's like surprising, which is one thing. But there's also like serendipitous. I'm like kind of in between both. Because I feel like a lot of my journey was really unexpected. Part of it was unexpected. Like I knew that I was going to go to school and all of that. And then, but things just change. And I learned a lot of things through all my experiences, or just like life circumstances change, my priorities change. And like, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do now? Like, what could possibly happen next? Because now I have no idea. But things end up falling into place. Even I mean, I'm still in school. I'm still like, in the job market looking, but then like, I think when one door closes, I see a lot more options out there in front of me that like I could never have seen before, if I kept going on the same path that I was on before. So even though like every turn is very unexpected, a lot of times it ends up like sometimes better than you even like could have thought of, like something you can't even plan for. That's like, oh, it's going to be okay, because I had no idea that like there's all this out there, so many people willing to help. So even though there is so much uncertainty, I think trusting the process, it's going to be okay. And I still feel like pretty positive about it, because every time something unexpected has happened to me, just as I said, another door opens, and I'm really grateful for that. So
I love that. It's a lot of just trusting your gut feeling, like Van, how you mentioned. If you're feeling as though you need time to explore another option, a couple of other options, trusting that that is going to lead you to feeling just way better about the ultimate path that you end up going on. And Nicole, like you said, just trusting the process overall. It may not be easy. It definitely probably is not, but it will eventually end up being where you want it to be. So that wraps up the questions that we have for you all, but I do want to acknowledge if any students had questions on that are currently in this room right now. At this time, if you have any questions, feel free to either raise your hand or add it to the chat. I know that there's been a couple of questions already answered, or already asked and answered in the chat. Such as how to navigate finding lab spots or research opportunities. A lot of you already suggested a couple of things, so definitely feel free to explore all of that. I do see honors questions being asked for the honors program. Just keep an eye out that our department will be sending out more communication about that in November, as that's when, or during the fall, as that's when we start planning for honors. So keep an eye out for that. And additionally, at any point, if anything has popped up since then, feel free to put in the question in the chat or raise your hand. So I'll give a couple of moments for that. Thank you, Julie. How did y'all feel about the stigma regarding psych and the field of psych?
Do you want to go?
I just wanted to clarify what stigma we're talking about. Are we talking about like a mental health stigma, or is it just like maybe the stereotype that if you're in the field of psychology, you're going to be a therapist? Or I'm not sure which stigma we're referring to, because I think after being in at UCSD for a while, I kind of forget what the stigmas are, because like what I know as psych is the research component and the science aspect, and I forget what like most people view psych as, like who are not in psych. So
yeah, negative stigma. Thank you for
okay,
that.
yes.
Negative stigma about how it's not a successful field compared to STEM fields. That's a great question.
I have my own thoughts on those. I guess it's hard to like compare them. Psych is still like a pretty new field. I do like love psychology, like the field itself, but I do think that especially going into grad school, you see a lot of like the politics of a certain field, how certain communities are just like not let in psychology. And I guess like I feel like it's kind of like its own bubble. Like even though other people might view psych this way, within the psych field, it has its own like so many other layers. There's like, some people be like neuroscience is better than cognitive science, and cognitive science is better than social psychology, and this. So I don't know. I feel like it's still a really cool, and I love studying it. But yeah, seeing all the inner workings, I guess it's a part that I don't know. In a way, it's hard to have a career in it. That's what it seems like. Like some people, it's a lot easier for some people. A lot of it is like connections and networking, and also like the reality is working in psych, like you might not make as much. Definitely, actually working in these other fields, and it's just the truth. You have it like there's like a select few that like if you want to continue in research and become a professor, like it's very difficult, it's very competitive. And that's just the truth, that a lot of people that take psych don't end up staying within the field. And yeah.
And I think it's safe to say that a lot of the time it's just becoming an advocate for yourself. And the higher up you go and the more research you produce, the more you just have to validate that what you are researching, what you are investigating is of huge importance and will contribute to society as a whole. Even if academia, even if there's some elitism, if it's not acknowledged, acknowledging within yourself and the collaborations, the community, that what you are doing is of worth. And that's kind of like a lot of the faculty right now that do research, oftentimes, they're just so motivated by their own passion and interest in the field. Definitely may be of impact with the financial contributions, like you've stated, Nicole. But I think you find ways to validate that what you are doing is worthy, and whether other aspects are impacted by that, then that's something you will weigh as you continue to navigate that journey. Van, did you have something to add to that?
Well, I would like to say again, I'm pretty young into my career, so I will also have baby thoughts about about just the segment about psych, but I do agree. Yeah, the reality is like if you want a specifically psych related job, there are few that pay comparably to a tech field, because like tech or STEM is just super highly valued in America. So that's just the truth. And I think this isn't just the psych specific versus STEM. I think it's just humanities versus STEM
100%.
as a whole.
True.
The thing I like about psych is that it's applicable to anything that you do.
Yeah.
Like even in tech, for example, like you need to know, like it's super helpful to have psych. And I think what I personally feel psych differs a little bit from some other humanities is the science aspect of it, where, or at least the logic that comes into it. It's kind of useful for a broad range of jobs where you need to think.
Mhm. It's
So
flexible.
yeah, so maybe the degree itself, it could be if you're not going into a psych specific field, like you should still be able to use what you learn to help you. And honestly, what I've seen, again, like I've only been out of school for a year, but when doing job applications, like a lot of them don't really care what your degree is. Like they just want to know what you do. And then, I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes it sucks too, because like sometimes it could just be like, maybe not quite a popularity contest, but like it's just the impressions that you give. But, um, you know, it's like I try not to think about it too much, where it's just like, oh no, I got accept doomed. And if you want to work in psych, there are some things that you could do to make money. Like, I know, I mean, this is I kind of going to tech, but I know that people who do psych can also sometimes go into data and learn the statistics aspect of. If you want to go the money route, that's one way. I'd also suggest if you want to go a high income route, law is also a way that I think fits really well. Like law has a lot of logic that you apply to it, and
Yeah.
doing research or such, you have to use that same logic that is put in. But again, it takes a certain type of personality to exist in law. So I'm not going to go into law, but just because you're in psych doesn't mean you can't make money, or doesn't mean you have to, like, you're completely doomed from where you are. You'll be able to apply what you know, and you'll be able to live with what you can get.
Yeah, I think what you and Nicole stated is it gives you the flexibility, and yes, I think you have to be very strategic and very intentional with how you sell yourself to a prospective employer or an opportunity with your psych degree. But I think it gives you that flexibility, that adaptability in a lot of different roles. It's just a matter of how you actually apply and translate your skills, your strengths, your experiences to that respective goal. It's really all about transferability at this stage. Which is another concept that hopefully we will dive into as we progress with Careers in Mind, and also a lot of resources provided by the Career Center. But just to be mindful of time before, continue to ask if you do have a question, feel free to add it in the chat, but I will quickly, before we proceed, I do want to shout out our upcoming Careers in Mind events, which will be an extension of this experience with different topics. So please feel free to visit our department site for our upcoming panel sessions. Registration is required, so please ensure that you visit and you register. We have counseling psychology professionals panel, clinical psychology professionals panel, psychology and beyond, which is a variety of different titles and roles within psychology. So if you're interested in that exploration and where that could potentially lead you outside of psych, that's a great panel. And then lastly, our networking session with panelists, which will hopefully give you a bit more one-on-one with specific titles, specific panelists, to give you that mentorship or that guidance that you may want outside of the Q&A session. A quick reminder to please fill out the Careers in Mind CCR credit sign-in sheet again, as we will use that to validate your participation. And then lastly, like I mentioned, a lot of our panels are really influenced by the resources that UC San Diego already provides via Career Center. So please feel free to visit the Career Center, really look at the resources, which hopefully will be in alignment with what you gained today. So with that, I know that a lot of the panelists provided their email. Van, if you feel comfortable, feel free to add that in the chat, or information as far as the research or what to reach out to them about. Shay, thank you for adding those websites with the Careers in Mind, the sign-in sheet for students who are seeking it, and the Career Center as well. Otherwise, if there are no other questions, thank you all for being here. Van and Nicole, and by extension, Sophia, thank you for being here, for being vulnerable, and for allowing the time to share your experiences with a very interesting time of a student's life. So thank you for sharing that. At this time, I will ask the panelists to stay on the call. Otherwise, for the students, thank you again for being here. Please feel free to use that sign in to the CCR, and feel free to chat with the UC San Diego Career Center as well. And then upcoming events, as we stated, will be on our department, and they'll also be via our Instagram, which I will share here is our handle. We do shout outs there as well. But thank you all for being here, and we hope you have a great rest of your day, and that we see you in our other future sessions. Thank you.